Today's episode of Outside the Rack is brought to you by Kinetic Performance, the makers of the Gymaware. In today's world of strength and conditioning, data collections become the utmost of importance, and that's exactly where Gymaware separates itself from the competition. Because when we're sitting there and looking to collect data, what data are you actually collecting? And are the numbers you're looking at fitting into the exercises that you're utilizing? And even more so, are they going to answer the questions that you're looking for? Looking at different ways that you are moving the barbell through peak and mean, both velocity and power, is really what separates Gymaware from the competition. Being able to understand what your ballistic exercises are doing separate to what your strength exercises are doing really allows you to program at a much more specific level for your athletes. So hop on over to kinetic.com.au to see what Evan and his team have in store for you today. The world of strength and conditioning is filled with some fantastic practitioners that are always searching for more. But more what? What are strength and conditioning coaches searching for to better their ability to prepare their athletes? Well, what about cutting-edge information, or a place where you can find different opinions from forward-thinking coaches on what you're doing, how you're doing, and try to get feedback to be better for your athletes? Or what about a place where you'll find like-minded coaches that can provide solid coaching advice and career development for you as you progress through your career as a strength and conditioning professional? Well, this is exactly why we built the Strength Coach Network. You'll have access to exclusive monthly content on top of the sensationally active forum that we have, where you can communicate with coaches all over the world to find those answers that you're looking for to help you be a better practitioner for your athletes. So make sure you hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPS, that's strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPS, and get your 48-hour trial for only $1. I look forward to seeing you in the Strength Coach Network. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the 22nd episode of Outside the Rack, brought to you by Kinetic Performance, the makers of Gymaware. In this show, we're just trying to dive a little deeper into the minds of some of the top practitioners in the world of sport performance to learn a little bit more about who they actually are and how they got to where they are today. Today, we are joined by the head strength and conditioning coach for EHC Eisbaeren Berlin, Jake Jensen. Jake, thanks for being with us, brother.
Thanks for having me. That was masterfully done.
I appreciate that, man.
That was perfect.
Thank you. Well, listen, man, before we get rock and rolling too far here, who is Jake Jensen?
Oh, I'm a graduate of the CVASPS conference. I think it's probably the best way to start it off. So I got my start going to your event, and here I am doing the thing. So just living in Germany with my wife and our 2 babies. We are expecting our 3rd in January, so we're short timers now. I got like 4 weeks, I think, until the 3rd son comes. But working and living the dream, I think working in teams is why we all do it, and living here with the fam is an added blessing.
That's awesome, man, and congrats on number 3 on the way. Shoot, this will probably come out right about the time when Jensen 3 is here.
Yeah, hopefully. My wife's ready to have him here right now.
I can only imagine.
She's ready to be done.
Yeah, I bet. Especially with the winter over there. I'm sure that can't be fun for her at all.
Yeah, she's ready to be done. So it's good times. Well, we're excited to have another one. So 3 little boys running around. It's going to be a party.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, listen, brother, good. Coming from Utah, Virginia, and now over to Germany, you've been around the world. Started in Russia to come to Portland, actually. But you've seen it all. Like, you've seen quite a bit of things. So if you wouldn't mind, describe a learning situation that brought about an epiphany in your career.
Ooh, I thought about this after you sent me the questions beforehand. I wanted to study and do it right. I think I guess one time that really stands out the most that's been important for me throughout all the experiences that I've been lucky enough to have as a strength and conditioning coach was working at BYU. I was working for Frank Wintrick at the time, who taught me a ton about being a strength coach and working in teams. But I know I can remember it like just like as if it happened yesterday because it left such a strong impression on me. Um, I showed up to the workout, like we had a staff meeting at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the workout started at 6 because the practices were in the mornings there, and my house was almost an hour away from BYU's campus, so I had to make a long drive to get there for the meeting and then to start the workouts. And I walked into the meeting probably like 4:58 a.m. and they already started the meeting. This was the strength staff right before we break out to set up the lift. Sit through the lift, it's that awkward moment. You walk in and everybody's like, new guy's here, late. And meeting ends, everybody breaks out. I go to like buzz out and start, getting away from the coach. And he calls me back in. He says, hey, stay in here for a sec. So I know I'm in for it. Then I call back in. So I shut the door, sits me down. And credit to him, he kept it short and sweet. And he said, I think that it's fair for me to just let you know you were late. And if you show up late to a staff meeting again, your internship will be over. So that's all. And, go set up the lift. And it wasn't, it wasn't anything like, he wasn't being malicious, it was just letting me know, like, there's a standard and we have to keep the standard. So from that point on, I was never late again. Like, I got there 30 minutes early. And after that had happened, we had conversations about it. And he was like, no matter where you go, just behave like a professional. Doesn't matter if you're an intern. It doesn't matter if you're a guest or like a visitor or the person who's in charge. You just have to behave like a professional. And that set the tone so much. Like we were talking before, I was telling you stories about what it's been like being in charge. And that just sets the tone for me. Like when I think about how I'm going to behave in a new situation, with coming to Germany where I don't speak the language, how should I interact with these people? It's like, just be a professional. And, that's been huge for me. Like no matter where I go, conferences, like I went to Hank's event in Amsterdam last summer or last fall, and there were people there that spoke like 5 different languages, French, Dutch, Romanian, German, Spanish, and they come up to you and talk to you in English and you can barely understand what they're saying. And you just think to yourself, how should I do this? And comes to your mind, like, just be a professional with these people. And it's always served me well. And I think that was probably one of the most valuable lessons I've learned, like as a strength coach.
That's awesome, dude. And I think that understanding that the standard that was taught is the standard that you need to go by is absolutely priceless.
Yeah, and even just little things, like just be on time. Like professionals don't show up late. That's all there is to it. If there's garbage on the floor, pick it up. Professionals, keep a tidy room. So if there's someone you don't know, introduce yourself. Like professionals introduce themselves to folks. So it was big time for me.
That's a great 3 little nuggets right there. I'm digging that, brother. I'm digging that. So let's move to number 2. An inquisitive guy also. Guy who definitely digs for answers. So if Jake could ask one question and knows he would get the answer to it, what would that be and why?
We'll talk about this one. I'll just be straight up. I would ask like a great coach like Bill Belichick or like you were talking about Bruce Pearl. I would ask that guy. I would say, in your experience, do you feel like you can actually make an athlete in the gym or like in training? And I would just want an honest answer because I think they would say no. I think that in a lot of cases as strength coaches, like we see people who haven't been trained or have little experience make huge gains in the training that we give them. But I think that head coaches and tactical staff place a huge value on recruiting for a reason. Like they've been tactical coaches their whole lives. Like they've seen guys come and go. They've seen, just imagine how many interviews, resumes, like discussions they've seen from strength coaches, like promising everything under the sun. And none of it in their experience, I would like to know, like, does it work? Like what is your main criteria for this position? And do you believe that it actually helps? Like I think in my experience, they place a value on having physical training, but I don't think that it's that value. Like I don't think they believe you can actually make an athlete. And for me, that's super important to know, because the things that make team sport athletes great at their competitive event are not the things that make a track and field athlete great at their competitive event. And in my experience, relatively short compared to a lot of the other coaches that I interact with, yourself included, I found that great athletes in their sport, they possess uncommon talent and tactical ability. And there is also like athletic ability in there. But without the talent and the tactics, they don't do great in the sport. It's like a train like Tarzan, play like Jane thing. You got a guy who's a great athlete, but he can't ball, he's gone. And so for me, I would love to hear, what do those coaches think of that? Like, is it actually possible or no? Because if not, man, I need to place a different focus on how I get those athletes to be better at their game. You know what I mean? And we talked about before, you could put a lot of energy into making them physically like so much more dominant, but if it doesn't matter, like why spend the time to do it? It's just a waste. If you can spend the time to make them more resilient instead of more robust, then that's a more valuable like investment of your energy with the athlete. There's a book I'm reading right now called Team of Teams, and I'm not sure what the name of the author is. I can't remember, but he talks about that a ton, like resilient versus robust. And his example is like a concrete pad is robust. Like you can drive a truck on it, you can build a house on it, you can pour water on it, it's not going anywhere. But if you pick it off the ground 2 inches and drop it, it's going to break. It's not resilient, it's robust. So for what it is, it's great. Like it's not going anywhere, and you can put heavy stuff on it. But I think that in team sports, the athletes need to be resilient. And I would be curious to hear what a coach like Belichick or Nick Saban has to say about that, who's seen elite team sport athletes for several generations, come and go.
That's pretty awesome, man. I dig that, because I think that on top of that too, that could literally flip on our head everything that you're trying to do with those young people. Like whether it would, like right now everybody loves to talk about KPIs and building towards KPIs and all that stuff, present company included, obviously.
Yeah.
But if they turned around and said that, well, then that's basically like them saying, like, screw your KPIs. Like, they're not going to make them better at game X, so let's work on something else.
Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of attention lately, at least for me. Like other people probably pay a lot of attention already, but like Mike Boyle and his discussions have come up a lot, like on my social media feeds. And I think in some things he's like very in this train of thought. He's like, you could do all kinds of special things, but if you're not getting the athlete to do them with 100% effort, or if you're not doing them in a way that for that athlete is going to make him better at his sport, it doesn't matter like how fancy or how specific it is, because you're missing the foundational piece, which is that it just doesn't matter that much. And I guess for me, like the KPIs and measurables are super important, because you have to, as a professional, you have to demonstrate that what you're doing is making an impact. And so it's not to discount the tools and the process. It's more to like have the correct perspective for like where those tools and process are taking you. Because you can make a great weightlifter, but does that mean he's going to be good at basketball? Like for me, does having him be a great weightlifter mean he's going to be great at ice hockey? No, in some cases, probably yes. In other cases, probably not. But I can't say, like, as a strength coach who hasn't coached ice hockey players for 30 years, like, I can't say these type of guys need it, these type of guys don't. Or this is what I wish they had at a younger age so that when they got older, they could do these things better. Like, I just don't have that experience, the tactical in the trenches, roadies under my belt to say it's what they need. So that would be really cool for me to hear.
No doubt, man. I love that. Because then even running down that rabbit hole a little more too, it's like we all, I think, and this is coaches of every level and every aspect of sport, get stuck running down that rabbit hole of the end of 1-2, right? Where you've got the one kid who like it clicked and then the weight room made him great. Or like the one kid who was allergic to the weight room and was an All-American. And it's like,
yeah.
Instead of sitting here and looking at it as the actual one kid that you're dealing with right now,
Yeah. Well, I suspect that it's a question of being able to communicate with the people you're working with. That same book, he talks a ton about his experience in the Army, and the example that really sticks with me as it pertains to sport is that when he was this guy who wrote the book, when he was an Army commander in Iraq, he was like, we were playing a game that the rules were completely different from the tools that we had to play it with. And he was like, the question we were trying to answer being like, fighting terrorists or whatever, the question would change every second. And every time there was a question, there was 5 possible answers. And he was like, our feedback loop was like 2 days before we could have enough information to make a decision. And he's like, we're trying to make a decision, answer a question that had already changed 100 times in the time it took us to get the information. And it's like with these kids, with these athletes, I think that's totally the case. And for me, I find myself being stuck in this rut of like, okay, you're tight. Let's look at your technique. Let's look at your ankle flexibility. Let's look at your like motivation to work out today. Your KPIs in strength, power, and fitness, flexibility. When maybe the question is not where your KPIs. The question is, what's going on at home that's got you feeling down.
No doubt, man. No doubt.
Or like, what did the coach say about your off-ice habits that's got you feeling amotivated to train? And so it's like now as a strength coach, it's like I've opened up my perspective to see that there's more influencing whether or not they do what makes them healthier than just like what they look like when they step in my room. Because I've had that experience already. Like a guy comes in and you're like, he comes in and he just has that like rain cloud attitude. And you look at him and you're like, man, like technique looks off today. He looks tired. Maybe we should modify. But it's like, if I grab him and I say, hey, come talk to me for a minute, and just be like, hey, man, what's going on? Like, you look off. Something looks off. 5-minute conversation, goes back out, has the best workout of the week. You don't have to modify a thing. You just listen for a minute, and he feels like somebody cares, and then he's out. And in other cases, the opposite. Guy comes in, looks terrible. You have to change his whole workout for 2 weeks, and then he comes back better. So I think it's more about like being able to answer the question of the minute rather than having one system that's intended to fit all of the questions. Maybe. I don't know. Could be wrong. But
I dig that. Having a system to answer the question of the minute instead of a system to answer all the questions. I dig that. That's I'll probably steal that and tweet that later. That's pretty freaking awesome. I'll tag you on it.
The book has a way better. It says it way better. I can't remember. It was great though. Like the way he writes it is just like, man, that's sports for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm a fan of that line. That's for sure, bro. That's big time. Well, listen, Jake. I know, like, for the people that don't know you, Like, this is like the one question that I'm actually excited to hear about because you do a lot of stuff. Like, people talk about work-life balance, and Jake Jensen has some awesome things he does outside of the gym. So, what is your escape, bro? I'm excited to hear these.
If you ask my wife, she'll say I have way too many. So my balance is off balance. Oh, I think I grew up in a smaller town, so I got a lot of spent a lot of time out in the mountains and using my hands. So here in Germany, I don't get as much time as I would like to, but I like to go. I like to hunt and fish. I like to go out camping and hiking. I get out a little bit. We had a camp this year in southern Germany in a town called Berchtesgaden, which is right close to Austria. And I like decided to like go on my little nature walk, and I got totally lost, and I ended up at the Eagle's Nest, Hitler's like former little thing on the top of the mountain. Like got myself lost to the top of to Austria. So that was cool. I also like to work on engines. So like in high school, I worked on cars for fun, and I did it as a work for my dad's company. So worked on tractors and stuff. Here in Germany, I rebuild motorcycles just because I don't have space for a car. So old Japanese motorcycles, it's pretty hard to screw up. I'll be honest. It's kind of like making a paper airplane. If you mess it up, you just get a new piece of paper and start over. So working on motorcycles is a good time. Yeah, like wrenching and being outside.
I would definitely mess that up.
Well, you just buy a new one or buy new parts.
I guess. But man, that's awesome, man. I'm glad that you're kicking butt over there, man, and things are great and the fam's great, man. And as always, it's great to chop it up, Jake, and it's great to see you, brother. And we'll be in touch real soon, homie. Stoked to catch up face to face this July, man. It's missed you this summer, and it's gonna be great to have you back in town.
Well, thanks for having me on, man. I can't wait to get out. It's gonna be good. I'm counting down the days.
Yeah, appreciate it, brother. We'll be in touch real soon, homie. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.